The great building has stood here for 800 years on a raft of Hampshire timber, floating above the peat bog on which it was built. But there's been a Christian church in Winchester for 1300 years and more. The old minster, built in the mid-7th century, lay just to the north of today's magnificent nave. This was a Benedictine monastery under St Ethelwold, and there are those who say that on damp days you can still smell the incense of those Catholic years emerging from the ancient stones. Like all great cathedrals, and like the smallest chapels and churches in the land, this unique building is dedicated to the worship of God. All its splendour and prestige, its history, its architecture, and its influence combine to fulfil that one aim. When you look at the size and beauty of the achievement of the early builders and masons, the carpenters and labourers, plumbers and the glaziers, you can easily see that some compelling motive of faith drove them forward with their modest tools and their near to impossible ambitions. Today, Winchester Cathedral is still supported and cared for by scores of willing workers and skilled talents who are in a long line of what the foolish call ordinary people, who have all made an important contribution to the life and stature of the building and its purpose. A January morning beside a tributary of Hampshire's River Itchen, and Maureen Churchill is out walking her dog and collecting ivy and other seasonal foliage. The Vice Dean calls Maureen the Queen of Flower Power, and she's one of a dozen flower ladies who dedicate time and talent to making the cathedral beautiful with their displays and arrangements.
Most of us cut from our own gardens or from friends' gardens, and we also go out into the hedgerows, which I love. It gives me a chance to go for a walk with my dog, Sabre, and cut ivy and anything that's appropriate to use in the cathedral. And if we use lots of greenery, which we all love doing, it then stretches the flowers quite a lot. Being a Catholic, I go to my own Catholic church every week. But I still feel that I'm very much part of the life of the cathedral, and I'm made very welcome down here and feel very much part of their life here in Winchester Cathedral. A few years ago it would have been very difficult, and it's wonderful now with church unity that we can all mix in each other's churches quite freely with no embarrassment on either side. I think it's absolutely wonderful.
Morning, Maureen.
Particularly at the two important times, Christmas and Easter, I think of all the hundreds and hundreds of ladies all over the country doing flowers in their village churches or in other cathedrals or abbeys. And I wonder if people who don't do flower arranging realise the work that all these wonderful ladies do all over the country. It is a team effort here. It's not just me doing the flowers. I'm a very small part of it. And I leave the ladies to really do what they want, do their own thing. Of course, there are colour themes at times of weddings or special events. But generally, we're left to do whatever we like to do. Certain colours are absolutely lost against the stone, as every lady who does flowers in churches will know. So certain colours, whites and yellows, show up very well. Some blues and some of the darker colours are just lost against the stone pillars. So this is something you learn, and we're all learning all the time. We learn from each other. I learn from the other ladies on the team. I love it in the mornings when it's very quiet and you can stand here or in one of the other positions and do your arrangement. And I feel very protective towards it. I've got that I love every stone in it, really. I think we all feel that, all of us that work here a lot. It's just such a wonderful building. It's so beautiful. And if we can enhance it just a little bit with our flowers, then I think we're doing a good job.
The north transept is a living symbol of the power of the Normans and of what they brought to these islands. Only the eye of an artist can do justice to its grandeur or its scale. Evensong has taken place in the cathedral every day for hundreds of years. The idea of a daily service inherited from the monks regardless of whether there's a congregation or not.
Okay, guys, we've got to get out there.
Even on dark January afternoons, the choir is there punctually at 5:30 and in full voice. It's an extraordinary thing that music of such quality and beauty is available to anyone who'll take the trouble to walk in off the street. Nathaniel Lippiott is 9 and goes to the Pilgrims' School. Here in the cathedral close, a cheerful band of boys is educated. 22 of them are choristers, and they make up the treble section of the choir.
I sang for church choir, and then I wanted to get into more sophisticated kind of choirs, and I went in for the scholarship not really thinking that I would pass, and I passed.
Jog to the try line and jog back, okay?
I play rugby with a team called the Folds, and I enjoy playing rugby, even though I prefer football. When I first came, I was a little bit shy and uneasy about things, and then I just got to know it better, and I had more friends.
Go on, James. Good try. 5-star jumps. Go on, Nathaniel, catch him up.
I enjoy singing, and I sing quite a lot.
Go on, then.
It's tiring sometimes for me, but I enjoy it, and I enjoy what I sing. Every Wednesday we're allowed to go shopping for sweets at Kingsgate Post Office, which is just down the road from the school.
How are you today? All right? Yes, thanks. Sweets. Who's going to go first?
I myself, along with the junior part of the school, get 40p a week to spend on sweets, and we can buy them and then eat them on the Wednesday afternoon. We travelled to Winchester quite a lot, and I've known the cathedral for a long time and got used to singing there, and it just feels like home.
Jelly bean.
This This is my great-great-great-grandfather. He was once the Bishop of Winchester. I was surprised when they told me because I knew him, I knew he was here, but I didn't know that he was a relation of mine. I was quite happy to know that he was here, that I had a relation in the cathedral.
Sister Elspeth is one of the Anglican Sisters of Bethany and comes regularly to the cathedral where she helps look after visitors. She's in her 82nd year and is affectionately known in the close as the Noonday Nun.
I'm sort of an odd job woman. I haven't always been, but I am now. But it's quite useful to have an odd job woman about. I think it's full of loveliness. I think the atmosphere of the prayers that have been offered here for nearly 1,000 years do hit you. And I think the people who come here must, in many ways, be touched by it.
Within the cathedral close is a parade of the history of England, very fitting for what was then the capital of Wessex and the young country's chief city. This was the home of the Saxon kings, including the great Alfred, and the early kings of England ruled from here. One of the most dramatic Winchester Cathedral stories involves William Walker, a diver who saved a large part of the building from collapsing. From 1906 to 1911, he worked in total darkness in foul, mud-flooded pits dug beneath the foundations and personally inserted hundreds of tons of concrete to stop the huge Norman timbers sinking even further into the bog beneath. Today, major repairs are going on in slightly less precarious conditions at the top of the tower. For the men working on high, hard hats and cool heads are a necessity, but at least they don't have to climb the tight spiral staircases to do their jobs. The man in charge is Clerk of the Works Raymond Corse.
Morning, John. How's it going? All right. Can we go aloft, please? Yes. Thanks very much. Lovely. One would think that it was a very quiet, easy-going ecclesiastical enclosure, which it is, of course, but it's a place of work, and one gets so used to carrying on working in this place. But then when one suddenly goes to a service, then it becomes a place of worship, as opposed to a construction site. On all levels of the tower, which would be 3 levels, we've got major problems. The worst problem is the bell chamber. The floor is literally unsound. So to repair that floor, we have to remove the bells and the bell frame. The main trouble has been that when the bells ring, the floor is beginning to sag and to swing backwards and forwards. And the fear is that if we're not careful, it will either collapse or tend to push the walls of the tower out. I feel very privileged to be one of a long, long chain of people that have looked after this cathedral for 900 years. And I feel sometimes very, very humble to think that these builders, the massive job that they had to build this place, and the job that I've got is to try and keep it up together and as it was and how they left it. And if I could look back and actually see those builders building it, I would actually like to say to them, well, well done, lads, and I would do my utmost to preserve it as a memorial to you, a memorial which is still a living building, used every day. And if only they could realise what they had achieved and how it has lasted.
The heavy oak gate in the wall beside St Swithin Street has swung open each dawn and been closed each dusk by centuries of gatekeepers and porters. Today, Vic White has the job, but it's only one of the 100 duties he has, which combine to keep the close and the cathedral clean and tidy and welcoming.
Never worked outside. I've only ever done butchering and factory work. And suddenly I come to a place like this and it's, well, it's like holiday camp, really. Although you're working, you know, it's just the general atmosphere. It is magic. It's worth about 50 quid a week just to be working here, really. But don't tell that to the dean, you know. The dean very often comes down the gardens, feed the ducks, sees our progress, has a chat, tells us if he wants anything done. He's quite easily pleased. Just do a few vegetables for him. And anything excess over, we hand round close to people that, you know, or the people that don't grow it in their own garden. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Vic. I've been wondering about these lime trees. They're obviously getting near the end of their life. The time's coming, I think, when we've got to plant in between.
Them, yeah. Or alternatively, say, pollard them now.
Yes, how long would they last if we do that, though?
Well, they'd last a good 10 years, yeah.
Yes, at what stage, though, do we need to get something ready to replace them? We don't want to have to pull them down and then have to start from scratch.
I think it would pay to do it now, you know, just get things going, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think we better bring the tree consultant in, bring the tree consultant in and see what he says, I think. So, I think, you see that one down there is cracking away.
It's hollow, isn't it?
That's right.
We've got 2 mulberry trees here, which was reputed to be planted by Charles II, which are falling over now, has had to be propped up, but it's still well laden with fruit after all this time. It's like a little charity down here, really. And everybody's taken my parsley. Yeah, I grow a couple of rows of parsley, which they all like, and make soup out of it and that sort of thing. The atmosphere down here is homely, you know, everybody mucks in, and if somebody's got something on their garden that I haven't got, I'm always welcome to go and take it, and vice versa. We just help each other. My least favourite job is definitely scraping down benches and putting linseed on them. That's done once a year. That is a terrible job. I wouldn't recommend that on my worst enemy. 22 benches altogether. That's counting 1 or 2 garden benches, which can take one fella just working, I suppose, about 8 hours to do complete. That's if your fingers can hold up, keep holding a little bits of glass, and then they're put back out again. Because even in the winter, even in the snow, I've seen people sleeping on them, so they're well used all year round.
While Vic is employed full-time, the cathedral is also served by an army of some 600 volunteers. There are more than 80 cleaners, called the Holy Dusters, and brass polishers, called the Brass Band. Each has a patch of the cathedral as a particular responsibility, and although the building is full of dust and invaded each day by hundreds of visitors, they still manage to make it sparkle. Stella Rogers helps look after the diocesan library, which is housed in the basement of one of the canons' houses in the cathedral close. Once she lectured in botany, but today she lives in a world of ancient and modern books, which she cares for and mends and binds with dedicated skill.
Hello everyone, everything all right?
Hello, Stella.
Any problems?
Yes. Fine, thank you.
Good.
I think the cathedral is a great body of people. Everybody who comes in, in however small a way, contributes something to the place. And it wouldn't be the place it is without everybody. There's something, I think, very, very special about the atmosphere in a cathedral city. There's that great feeling of tradition, the past, the present, and looking forward to the future. The thing has been here so long, surely it will go on being here.
Stella is also a talented calligrapher, and her teaching skills come back into play when she welcomes a class of local children to the north transept of the cathedral to help them understand how those elegant letters and words are formed.
There was a Benedictine monastery here in Winchester, and of course the monks had a scriptorium where they copied out books. That was the only way that they could get copies of books that they didn't have. They would borrow one and they would copy it out. And they were enormously skillful.
Oh, David, that's a lovely flower. Better than mine, isn't it? Yes, well done. That's super.
The children enjoy it enormously. We get the most lovely letters from them afterwards, often written in the script that they've been learning or with a nice big illuminated letter. And that again is good because the schools are teaching the children to write and say thank you.
Swithin does it again. A woman having broken eggs by stumbling at another's legs, for which she made a woeful cry at St. Swithin chance for to come by, who made them all a sound or more than ever that they were before.
In a way, I was going to say, it is my life. I live on my own. Of course, I have a lot of friends, but I have very few close family. And so, in a sense, the cathedral community is my family. It is part of my family.
The tree of life, my soul has seen, it on with fruit and always green. The tree of life, my soul hath seen, laid on with fruit and always green. The trees of nature branches be compared with Christ, the apple tree.
Four generations of the Offer family have worked as plumbers and lead workers in Winchester Cathedral. One of Dennis's main tasks is to take over the job of the gargoyles, through whose gaping mouths the rainwater once flowed, and to fit magnificent lead drain pipes down the towering sides of the nave. If you're feeling in a generous mood, you can even pay for one and have your initials or family coat of arms carved at the top.
We're making something like about 150 lengths of rainwater pipe offsets in shoes, and they're all to go on the different parts of this Winchester Cathedral, and they're going round the lower ones. And what's happened in the 1920s, people got a bit hard up and they stole a lot of them, and they replaced with cast iron, and purpose-made ones too, which is all very, very nice. But over the years, they've all cracked and split, so what we're doing, take them all off, remaking them and unless we've got to go around the cathedral and refit them all on. I was apprentice for the firm who actually specialised at that day in churches and cathedrals, and I was brought up in that. So I was lucky that I've had as much as like 40 odd years in the business. No, I don't think I'd change the trade. I think we're too long now, and I think I'd love to. But if I did have to change it, and if I do come back in the world again, I'd love to come back as a bishop or something like that.
That's straight, Andy. Yes.
So if you come along here, I can show you some very beautiful gargoyles. Well, they're quite hideous, but they are beautiful in their own right.
Although Dennis's drain pipes have denied the gargoyles their role, scores of them still people the outside of the cathedral. It may be just as well that they remain, because as well as directing the rainwater, they were also said to frighten away evil spirits. They don't have this effect, however, on modern school children, who arrive to learn about their purpose and their history. They also come dressed to have a go at making one themselves, under the expert eye of the cathedral head stonemason, who's brought along a genuine and ancient gargoyle for them to copy.
The rabbit?
I'm trying to get them the same too.
A bit bigger on that, and the ears are large. How about a bigger nose?
We were gathering up the roses in the wildwood on a merry summer day.
The Wickham Arms, which has stood beside the walls of the close for nearly 250 years, has always been a regular meeting place for cathedral people. The senior members of the choir, the lay clerks, often come here for a pint and, of course, to loosen up their vocal cords.
Oh, the look she gave to me.
There are even slots on the pub tables where you can make a contribution to the cathedral music funds.
One more kiss before we part. 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 Well, roses bloom so gay, tiddly-um.
People have been worshipping at Winchester Cathedral for 1,000 years and more. It's a hard human being who can stand here unimpressed and unawed by the size and the splendour of the place and the depth of religious feeling which has made it possible. It's also perhaps worth remembering that without the sacrificial efforts of thousands of men and women across the centuries, and not just the high and the mighty, none of it would be here today.